So I'd like to welcome you all to the Johnny Master Show. Yeah, sometimes you have to, do things a little crazy to get people's attention. Malcolm X talked about the crazy Negro theory, right? When we act like crazy Negroes, we'll get our freedom when we all act like crazy Negroes. So now I'm talking about the Reggio Emilia way and the Montessori approach. Both of these are traditionally children's education. There's actually like 3 or 4 Montessori schools in Louisville, and Reggio Emilia, there are none. Not in Louisville, but there are some. I don't know. It's the Reggio Emilia approach. It comes out of Italy, I believe. But let's read a few of these web pages and find out what Wikipedia has to say. So, Wikipedia, I hate Wikipedia. I wrote Ronnie Lee Smith biography, and they said, oh, he wasn't relevant, and then they deleted the whole page. And, every life on this planet is relevant. So, if they just had one kid, that means they push for the human race. It would be good for ancestry work. They could have, like, maybe an ancestry page or something else, but really, I'm just disgusted with how they did things. So there's a warning on here saying something about how it's crappy, and I'll respond to that in a minute. So the Reggio Emilia approach, let's see, is educational philosophy focused on preschool and primary education. It was developed by Loris Malaguzzi, who was a teacher himself, and the parents of the villages around Reggio Emilia. And what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, how many Reggio, Wikipedia, how bad it sucks. So it says the article is written like a personal reflection or opinion essay. Whatever. Okay, so Reggio Emilia, according to the biased Wikipedia. Reggio Emilia approaches educational philosophy focused on preschool and primary education. So let me talk about I'm going to talk about Wikipedia. Because Wikipedia, every life is valuable. So, okay, maybe somebody who's born and they say that there's no actual, he's the first libertarian candidate to run for sheriff in Kentucky. That's notable. He cured over 200 cases of cancer. That's notable. They legalized medical marijuana in Kentucky this year. Everything he was saying was right. He is politically assassinated. His death is under question. Leukemia regenerated when he was in prison. He's got one $2.6 million lawsuit pending and probably another wrongful death lawsuit going. So it's current events. It's something that's ongoing right now. It's relevant. It's notable for several reasons, right? Curing cancer, that's not notable. So there's just give one example with the comedian thing. They said, oh, it was YouTube, right? You can't use YouTube as evidence for anything. He's a comedian. He's a comedian, right? So I mean, just some people are just comedians. Sarah Silverman, she's just a comedian, but I guess like she's a star liner. I mean, like it's incredible how Wikipedia was. But I had videos that posted, that linked to that proved that he was a comedian. So that doesn't say that he's a comedian. He actually got up and did stand up. But if he had an article written about him, then all of a sudden he's notable. The media doesn't cover a lot of the stuff, so you have to have some sort of media page. I mean, I would have, if I was to run a campaign right now, I would avoid the mainstream media like the plague. They don't actually do in-depth coverage. They do hit jobs. They don't, they just need the videotape. That's all they care about. So they don't actually do what people are supposed to do. The Iraq War, there was all a bunch of parrots, right? Go George Bush, go George Bush. It's all about 9/11, kill, kill, kill. Well, it's about the empire, okay? He was able to say, well, we're an empire. We can attack whoever we want to attack. It's 9/11. We can do whatever we want to do, right? So those are my criticisms with Wikipedia. They tend to take real evidence and push it down in exchange for like a New York Times article. There's also that one guy who wrote all those fake articles for New York Times. So I used to be such a huge defender of Wikipedia too, because all the schools are like, oh, Wikipedia, that's not very good. Wikipedia, I think, is a good start. It's a good introduction for new things, and that's basically it. So the Reggio Emilia approach, it's an educational philosophy focused on preschool and primary education. It was developed by Loris Malaguzzi, who is a teacher himself, and the parents of the villages around Reggio Emilia in Italy after World War II. Okay, so Loris Maluguzzi, that's the man who developed it. It's preschool and primary education, right? It's a teacher himself and the parents of the villages around Reggio Emilia in Italy. So Reggio Emilia is a city, and the Reggio Emilia approach is the type of education because it's named after the city that was founded in. After such a great and destructive event, people believed that children were in need of a new way of learning. The assumption was that people formed their own personality during their early years of development, and moreover, that children are endowed with 100 languages. So I got that right. They have 100 languages. They form their own personality. So their own personality is developed when they're babies. Okay, that's when they are. That's when they become who they are. And actually, when we give, our children away to other child care providers, we're giving that personality away to other people. Um, the aim of this approach is teaching how to make them useful in everyday life. So I don't know if the person is useful or the language is themselves. The program is based on the principles of respect, responsibility, and community through exploration and discovery. So discovery is a thing. Exploration is a thing. I'll even put experimentation because that's just the scientific way, right? So experimentation is a way. Respect, responsibility, and community, right? So, based on the interests of the children through a self-guided curriculum. Okay, all right, they've won me over. I want to do self-guided curriculum. That's probably the best way. That's self-education, but it's self-guided. I mean, that's again the best educational program that I had, which eventually was just a trick, right? Just to say, well, since I allowed you to do this thing, so now you got to be my slave. But a self-guided curriculum, these are the things that I want to learn. Help me get to where I want to go. That's the education. That's the way all education should be. That's for people that are, I guess, conscious or aware of their own sort of development. But that's even then. Even then, I mean, that's like I don't know how to read. I'd like to learn how to read. By the end of this, okay, you want to learn how to read? Well, here we go. We just got to read and repeat and say this. Okay, good. The right practice and do all the things that we're supposed to do. You'll learn how to read. So that's Reggio Emilia approach. There's a history, conclusion, philosophy, role of the environment, role of teachers. I'll check out the role of environment and I'll check out the 100 languages, okay? So the organization of the physical environment is crucial to Reggio Emilia's early childhood program, is often referred to as the child's third teacher. So the environment is incredibly important, right? So have a sort of a environment that is conducive to learning. Major aims in the planning of new spaces and the remodeling of old ones include the integration of classroom with the rest of the school with the surrounding community, right? Genius, okay? So you're connected, the class connected to the schools, connected to the community. The importance of the environment lies in the belief that children can best create meaning and make sense of the world through environments which support complex, varied, sustained, and changing relationships between people, the world of experience, ideas, and many ways of expressing ideas. That needs to be written down, okay? So the preschools are generally filled with indoor plants and vines awash with natural light. Classrooms open to a central piazza. Kitchens are open to view. Access to the surrounding community is assured through wall-sized windows, courtyards, doors to the outside of each classroom. Entries capture the attention of both children and adults through the use of mirrors on the floors, walls, and ceilings, photographs and children's work accompanied by transcriptions of their discussions. These same features characterize classroom interiors, where displays of project work are interspersed with arrays of found objects and classroom materials. In each case, the environment informs and engages the viewer. Other supportive elements of the environment include ample space for supplies, frequently rearranged to draw attention to their aesthetic features. In each classroom, there are studio spaces in the form of large, centrally located atelier and smaller mini atelier. I don't know. It's clearly designated spaces, low and small group activities, groups. So actually, there's a picture of here. It's widely, it's spacious, it's wonderful, it's beautiful. It looks like a fun-filled playland. It looks like McDonald's Playland, only in a school. Okay, so it's like saying, hey, here's a school, come play in me, right? Here's a school, come enjoy, come explore, come figure things out. So they've won me over just with that environment thing. The environment thing was also Montessori, which is the other educational approach we're going to take a look at. It's the 100 languages of children. The term 100 languages of children refers to the many ways children have of expressing themselves. Reggio teachers provide children different avenues for thinking, revising, constructing, negotiating, developing, and symbolically expressing their thoughts and feelings. The goal for adults and children is to better understand one another. That's the point of communication. And since we got 100 ways to speak to each other, we should be employing those 100 ways. As children proceed in an investigation, generating and testing their hypothesis, they're encouraged to depict their understanding through one of many symbolic languages, including drawing, sculpture, dramatic play, and writing. Okay, so drawing, sculpture, dramatic play. Oh, Shakespeare, blah, blah, blah. That's my Shakespeare impersonation. Oh Romeo, oh for where art thou, Romeo? So they work together towards was it refuse thy father and refuse thy name, deny thy father and refuse thy name. Which that's pretty a huge demand, but I would do that in a heartbeat. What? Deny my father, refuse thy name. Done. Juliet, will you be mine? You have me all to yourself. Juliet, will you be mine? So, it's better to understand one another, sculpture, writing, to work together towards the resolution of problems. So conflict resolution, that is actually something, the conflict resolution. There's the 5 branches of government. I got to make sure I put that down. Revisions of drawings and ideas are encouraged. Teachers allow children to repeat activities and modify each other's work in the collective aim of better understanding the topic. Teachers foster children's involvement in the processes of exploration and evaluation, acknowledging the importance of their evolving products as vehicles for exchange. So, conclusion, Reggio Emilia's approach to early education reflects a theoretical kinship with John Dewey, Jean Piaget, Vygotsky, Jerome Bruner, among others. Much of what occurs in the class reflects a constructivist approach to early education. Constructivists, we all create our own realities. We interpret, the world how our mind interprets it. Of course, that's true. That doesn't necessarily, there is only, there's your truth and my truth. We have our own different narratives, and there's different ways we interpret things, but a thing either happened or it didn't happen, right? There was, either the government killed Malcolm X or the Nation of Islam. Those are the 2 options, or maybe together, but essentially the motivation is, and those killers are still alive, so, why couldn't you just say, hey, why'd you do it? So, but I'm saying the thing, okay, let's go to Martin Luther King, okay, that there was a man who shot Martin Luther King, or JFK. A thing had happened, right? It either did or did not happen. So a thing did happen. Now, how we interpret it or try to figure it out, how we reconstruct it or how we try to come up with theories on what it had happened, those, that's constructivist, and those are different truths, I guess, in some respects. But to say that there's only one truth. I don't believe there are different truths. I believe there's only one truth. So Reggio Emilia's approach does challenge some conceptions of teacher competence and developmentally appropriate practice. For example, teachers in Reggio Emilia assert the importance of being confused as a contributor of learning. Thus, a major teaching strategy is to purposely allow mistakes to happen or begin a project with no clear sense of where it might end. Another characteristic is counter to the beliefs of many Western educators is the importance of the child's ability to negotiate in the peer group. One of the most challenging aspects of the Reggio Emilia approach is the solicitation of multiple points of view regarding children's needs, interests, abilities, and the concurrent faith in parents, teachers, and children to contribute in meaningful ways to the determination of school experiences. Teachers thrust themselves to respond appropriately to children's ideas and interests. They trust children to be interested in things worth knowing about, and they trust parents to be informed and productive members of a cooperative educational team. The result is an atmosphere of community and collaboration that is developmentally appropriate for adults and children alike. So that's the world of Reggio Emilia according to Montessori. So I still need to get that link, which has nothing to do with you all. But the last video of this series will have a link of the videos to the alternative forms of education that I had clipped together that video. And then I'll also have a write-up of all the best qualities of each one of these educational things that need to be incorporated into the postmodern university for, or school or university for revolutionaries. So, what is Reggio Emilia? This is education.com. For many parents of preschool-age children, the beginning of the school years can be scary. When your child starts going to school, it means less parent involvement in day-to-day learning and more teacher-structured lessons, less play, more work. But a growing form of early childhood education called the Reggio Emilia approach is turning heads with its unique take on teaching. Um, I'm not sure if I actually like the Waldorf schools is like a spreading movement that's taken over everywhere. I'm not for sure. This is such a beautiful. Maybe it takes money to build that building, and it's sort of for children. Could you imagine though making a Reggio Emilia approach to education for adults? Have sort of a playland for adults. What does that look like? I mean, libraries would be wonderful. Okay, having people that read books and want to talk about the books that they read. Having some sort of I believe in free association, free exchange, but I think there has to be some way to connect people. Facebook is a good way to connect those types of folks, but people actually need to want to learn things. So I want to be around people that want to learn new things and do new things, and that have some sort of wonder about the world. It isn't so static. And I know it all, right? I have, Joe Rogan has a joke where he was like, hey, you know what's going on? And the guy, oh yeah, I know what's going on. Oh yeah, well I do too, right? Nobody, and actually I just read this article about how everybody is just winging it. So no, you don't know what's going on. You're just winging it, okay? And so I call bullshit, right? I say you lie. So for many parents of preschool-age children, the beginning of the school can be scary. But let's go with the Reggio Emilia approach. One makes parents, teachers, and children equal shareholders in the learning initiative. Genius. That's Sudbury model, right? Everybody gets a vote. One person, one vote. Reggio Emilia is an Italian export. It's not, as you might expect, a fancy cheese. In fact, it's an approach to education from a city of the same name. It focuses on the educational importance of community and free inquiry as its primary values. Free inquiry, genius. We don't even have free inquiry in graduate schools, in normal schools, right? In colleges. There's no freedom and democracy in American institutions of education, of higher learning, unless it's specifically designed for it, and that's the only way you'll get it. In fact, it's an approach to education from a city of the same name. Since its development in the 1940s, the Reggio approach has spread into a worldwide network of preschools and kindergartens with designs for elementary classes in the works. Although the Reggio approach shares some of the values of the better-known Waldorf and Montessori schools, it's not a philosophy with a set system of beliefs. Rather, it's an approach based around certain fundamental values about how children learn. These values are interpreted in different schools, different contexts, and in different ways, said Susan Lyon, executive director of the Innovative Teacher Project, which aims to develop and promote Reggio-inspired education. Just what are these core values? Here's an introduction. The child as an active participant in learning. The Reggio approach sees the child as a very competent protagonist and initiator who interacts with their environment. Right, so they're an active participant. They're a constructionist type of perspective. Bruner, I think, was a big constructionist. Students are allowed to follow their own interests, but it's not willy-nilly. For example, students in her classroom were showing an interest in building, so she brought wood stumps and building materials into the class. While exploring how to hammer nails, the children were given the opportunity to reinforce math skills, problem-solving, and emergency literacy, all in relationship to their hands-on project. So it sounds like freedom, but then it sounds like it's not freedom, right? Significance of the environment. Environment of the school is seen as the third educator, right? The teacher and the parent. So you got the teacher, the parent, then the environment. The environment is a teacher. So I should write that as the third teacher. It's just a different way to kind of think about it, but just basically environment is important. Classrooms, they have a studio. It's filled with materials such as clay, paint, writing implements. You use this material to represent concepts that they're learning on in a hands-on way. Teacher, parent, child, collaborators in the process of learning. Normally, says Lyon, parents are not seen as part of the educational process in an authentic way, but Reggio approach views that the parent as an essential resource for the child's learning. To foster community, Reggio schools host a variety of events throughout each school year, including conferences, special lectures for parents. For example, a teacher observed that a lot of parents are complaining about their children weren't sleeping well. School responded by bringing someone in to speak to the parents about the issue. Making learning visible. Teacher observes and documents the daily life of the school to make learning visible. In Reggio-inspired classrooms, teachers use a variety of documentation methods such as cameras, tape recorders, and journals to track children's thoughts and ideas as they play together and work with materials. I like that. So, make learning visible. So, the reason why I like that is because that's what I'm doing with these videos, is making learning visible when they're taking pictures, when they're going to be posting the writings on the wall. That makes you want to actually make a better sort of a product. Adapting the values of Reggio Emilia can be challenging. They say it's worth it because they validate the children and blah, yada, yada. So they didn't even mention the 100 languages in that article, but that's a very important thing. So what do we learn with Reggio Emilia? Children have their own personality. They develop when they're young. That's sort of the follow the child mentality of Montessori. They got the environment as a third teacher, so it's very important, just like Montessori. They believe in exploration and discovery. They believe in a constructivist worldview, which I believe in, like Bruner, and they talked about Vygotsky, right? They also believe in useful education. They believe in a self-guided curriculum. So they said self-guided. They wanted to learn about building. So she brought in wood and stuff, but then she made them do all this extra work. So it's like, hey, you want to do some real learning right here? Do some real learning. Now do all this extra stuff. In my dream world, it's I want like Sudbury model schools. I'm afraid they're just going to sit around and do nothing all day. That's their right. They can do what they want to do, and I think sometimes you need that sort of inner peace just to say, man, quit messing with me, quit telling me what to do, just let me exist. Why do I got to comply with anything? So I feel like some sort of reflection, a 1 page or a half a page paragraph or paper or something at the very end of the week, in order to sort of show that they are, what is the purpose of what they're doing. And actually, you don't even really need to write that. You could just have an advisor ask them. So what did you learn this week? There's a guy playing video games, and they were videotaping him, and they said, so what does playing video games teach you? And then they all kind of laughed, and then he kind of gives some BS excuse saying that it taught him how to read because he had to read the pamphlets. And it helps with reading, but to say that it taught you how to read, I think that's a far stretch. And so I think it seemed like he had never been asked that question, what are you learning? And if you're not even, I mean, there's some classes that just, test, and exit slips after every class. So what'd you learn? Exit slip, exit slip, exit slip. And they might not have learned any big concepts, they might have learned a big thing. What did I learn? That I'm obedient to arbitrary authority, period. They could just put that every time. So, I don't want it to be like, what are you learning, what are you learning, what are you learning? But in a way, I do. Okay, so at the end of the day, I know, like, doing these videos that I am learning and I'm articulating these different things, and it's still going. Electric went out for a second. I do like these videos too. I could actually do longer than 15 minutes, man. To have just 15 minutes, that's just ugh. So, okay, so that's that. There's conflict resolution. The environment matters. The free inquiry, that kind of goes along with the discovery, but free inquiry means that their curiosity is their guide. They involve the parents, and they make learning visible. So they sort of, sometimes that's all people want is just a little bit of credit, a little bit of validation. Sugata Mitra says, well, how do you be a teacher? And they say, well, just be like a grandmother. You give all the attention in the world, and then so you give all the attention in the world, and you give lots of compliments. So positive reinforcement is always a good thing. So positive reinforcement, positive reinforcement, positive reinforcement. I almost feel like negative reinforcement rarely works unless you're mature enough and you respect the other person's viewpoints. But positive reinforcement can never go wrong. So, if somebody says, hey, I like playing in the mud, and I like writing constitutions, and I like to exercise all the time. You don't have to say, stop playing in the mud. You don't need to tell them that. If that's their thing, that's their thing. If that's what gets their juices flowing to make them better Constitution writers or better, whatever the other thing that I said, exercising. If they make, playing in the mud makes, I don't know, if it makes them exercise more or if it makes them write Constitutions better, then good. So what you do need to say is, you're writing Constitutions? Why are you just writing Constitutions? That's, don't make fun of them. Just talking about, actually, I think it's great. Why are you writing? That's incredible. I love that people are writing constitutions. There's model city charters. I would be totally for that, because writing constitutions, that like the U.S. Constitution, there's a bunch of argument just with the general welfare clause. Wait a second, general welfare, that can mean anything and everything. So that means the federal government might be able to take charge and take over the state. Yeah, they can, and they did. So the fact that just one little line or one little sentence was able to be manipulated to take over the whole thing Some charters just flat out say, okay, this charter establishes that the city of Muldrow is going to take over all the land and the power and the electric and the water lines and basically anything that is publicly owned or accessible. This is Muldrow's now. So they designed a constitution that specifically says it has all those powers, whereas the Constitution just says the general welfare. We're here to protect the general welfare of the people. Yeah, Kentucky's Constitution says we're allowed to have a revolution if they don't guarantee our safety, peace, and happiness. So, peace, happiness, safety. This this is JC LMPD right here. So that wasn't peaceful. That wasn't safety. And happiness, no, they didn't. They did the exact opposite. They didn't guarantee any of those things. So that was a review. Montessori education is an educational approach designed by Italian physician educator Maria Montessori, characterized by an emphasis on independence, freedom within limits. Okay, so it sounds like it's a good thing, but this is for children. So I actually think that there's some I don't know, because the Reggio Emilia says that's when they develop their personality. You have 20,000 synapses in your head, so you actually are able to acquire language easier when you're younger, to learn new things. It's when you learn your personality and become who it is that you're going to be. So, characterized by an emphasis on independence, freedom within limits, respect for a child's natural, psychological, physical, and social development. Although a range of practices exist under the name Montessori, the Association Montessori Internationale and the American Montessori Society cite these elements as essential. Mixed age classrooms, with classrooms children's ages 2.5 or 3 to 6 years old, by far the most common. That's incredible. Mixed age classrooms. I almost want to go back to the old school age houses where you connect the the older kids with the younger kids, because we are our brother's keeper. We should care about each other. And so even just teachers and students, I mean, that's a big generational gap there. I remember somebody in class, I'm sitting there saying, respect the children, and then somebody was complaining like, I really hate those teachers that try to be friends with the kids. That's not my goal. I'm not trying to be friends with them. Like, I understand that I want to get them to the direction that they want to go. If they don't want to be my friend, I can't take it personal. In public education, you just have to take anybody that comes your way, right? But I'm not going to not be their friends. You know what I mean? Like, to say that, how dare you? It's like, okay, you can't be a friend of the students, but you can be their enemy. You could yell at them and treat them like crap. That's acceptable. That's fine. But be their friends? Wow, that's the worst thing that they could ever think of, right? School choice of activity from within a prescribed range of options. Uninterrupted blocks of work time, ideally 3 hours. So uninterrupted block hours. So just work for 3 hours straight. I had talked about the prescribed range of options having 5 stations, and they get to pick one of those stations up, so they get the illusion of choice, and they actually want to do it. I think it's brilliant. It gives them the illusion of choice. They think they know what's going on, and they get a lot of things accomplished. Eventually, though, Ender's Game, the end of it was they had confronted the establishment, and then he was, his own person. So, maybe that's just what they want. They want this confrontation of the establishment. So, student choice of activity from within a prescribed range of options. A constructivist or discovery model. Again, same thing with Reggio Emilia. Learn concepts of working with materials rather than direct instruction. Specialized educational materials developed by Montessori and her collaborators. So Montessori actually has specific items, that they learn from. So I guess it has to be some sort of hands-on thing that teaches them specific concepts. Freedom of movement within the classroom. I love that, freedom of movement. I remember Karen Stone had told me, just sit down. Just sit down. And I told my friend about it, or my ex-friend. I said, yeah, she just yelled at me about, just sit down. And he was like, well, how come you're standing up? And not paying $50,000 to be told to sit down like a dog. Shut up, sit down. You're a dog. Get out of here, man. That is just some bull. So Montessori, right? They have freedom of movement. They're allowed to do that. A trained Montessori teacher. So Montessori has their own sort of curriculum. Waldorf did the exact same thing. I went down if Reggio Emilia does the same thing. In addition, many Montessori schools design their programs with reference to Montessori's model, human development from her published works, use of pedagogy lessons, da 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 da. So I was thinking, I really like Sudbury model schools in its democratic ways, but because it's rooted in life, they have a limited amount of resources. They need tuition. They need to pay teachers. What happens when you get a poor person that wants to come up? Everybody has a right to vote, but only those who pay. And what if they, drop down in economic level? We don't pull for this person. Do we like the person? Do we think that they're a person, part of the community, that they could, advance in society? I think that there should be some scholarships for promising folks, right? There was that kid, I forget his name, but I reference him all the time. But he had developed a pancreatic strip that was very inexpensive that people could use in order to just cents on the dollar to be able to see if they got pancreatic cancer. And it was a kid that developed this. I want to say Sinacra Joseph something. I don't know. I'm not gonna guess his name, but it was like a 17-year-old kid and his pancreatic cancer. But he had developed it because he had questioned it. He started studying it. Let him use the laboratory. Then eventually he was able to figure it out, right? And great, now we have a new sort of process that had not been used before, to where we could detect pancreatic cancer for just pennies on the dollar. And that was by a kid. So I think actually, in a way, I want to make it like it takes like 10,000 scientists for a breakthrough to happen. Scientists, engineers, they have a lot of like CAD and stuff. I mean, there's so many things with technology. I really want this school to just be just technologically astute, just technology all over the place. I remember in Xavier University, I was going to make the technology city, and I wanted to be the first modern city ever, and I wanted to have everybody gets a laptop, and everybody gets. And I remember there's some Uncle Tom, like, oh, I object, and then I never talked about it ever again, because who cares what I think, right? I only wanted to create a first modern city ever. And that's incredible. The idea died because of that. I was in there, I said a good idea, somebody was against it, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm wrong. Nobody validated me. We're all a bunch of like just at each other's throat, dog eat dog world, Hunger Games. This is how teachers like the things. This is how they like things. Montessori School of Louisville. The tuition and fees are due for each MSL student on an annual basis. Tuition contributes to the overall cost of educating each child, including teacher salaries, materials, and overhead. Fees are assessed annually to cover snacks, supplies, and activities. Tuition will be prorated for those children starting after October 1st, 2014. To be accepted and voted by the board. $400 acceptance fee for each student to secure enrollment. Enrollment contracts for the next school year issued to returning students with a $400 acceptance fee. Siblings of currently enrolled students are given priority consideration. It's January. They are not stating how much this costs. All of these actually would be like fascinating. Tuition payments, facts, tuition facts, PDF viewer. The Sudbury model schools, I've seen like $4,500. I've seen $3,500, $5,000. Public education gives about $8,000 to $9,000 per student, and I've heard somebody sends their kid to Christian education and they have like no money, right? They said that they pay way more than that. So I'll come back with that later. I'm getting to the end of this. Maria Montessori was about follow the child. They're really actually missing, these pages are really missing like the crux of who she was and what she wanted. The method has been time-tested over 100 years of success. Diverse cultures is view the child as one who is naturally eager for knowledge and capable of initiating learning in a supportive, thoughtfully prepared learning environment. It values the human spirit, development of the whole child, physical, social, emotional, and cognitive. So the spirit, right? And of course, I think these are all good, but it's just good to write them all down. Social, emotional, and cognitive. So components are necessary for a program to be considered authentically Montessori. Montessori has their own specific Montessori like packages. So really, Montessori is they are making bank on all this stuff, right? You have to get a Montessori approved this and a Montessori approved that. I don't like this website, but I'm gonna actually try to find out. See, Montessori tuition. That's all I'm gonna write. See what I can. How much does Montessori cost? So we're about to find out. Maybe. Yeah, even like colleges, they always like put it on the back burner. So tuitions range, right, from under $1,000 to a high of over $14,000 per year. Median annual tuition by age level was as follows. Okay, this is good. I like this. So, let's see. So for ages 12 to 15, it's $11,000. So $11,000 per person. So it's a little bit more expensive, right, than the public education. Wow. But I mean, they have all those supplies and all those other things in private, so they have only a small amount of people that can do the thing. It's incredible. I mean, why can't a teacher training program teach you how to do all these teaching tactics, right? So you can work in Montessori, you can work in, why can't they teach all these things? There should be a class, alternative education, right? Alternative education. There should be a class for that for teachers, to expand. Why do you have to just work in a public education setting? Why can't you do the Reggio Emilia, Sudbury, Summerhill, Montessori schools? Why can't you do these things? Cons Academy, Mitra, St. John. I mean, why can't you do these things? I think you should be allowed to. There are some cheaper ones for, let's see, infant or toddler for up to 6 hours a week. That's ridiculous. Okay, $3,000 a year for only 6 hours per week. That's almost sickening to my stomach. 8 hours. Let's think. 8 hours times 5 is 40. So that means 40 hours is what a typical teacher receives. Oh, okay. 6 hour days. No, 6 hour total. Okay, yeah, that's sickening. That's ridiculous. So there's a 6 hour day, $7,000. There's $9,000 for 29 hours per week, which is almost a full week, but $9,000. This is really expensive. 4 hour days, it's 5,000. 6 hour days, 7,000. 6 to 9, 8.5. 9 to 12, 8,000. So about, you know, if you want full days, if you only want 3 hour a day, there's only so much. I mean, I guess it's such a great quality education. They'll just be bursting. Oh, I learned this, I learned that. Just make your home conducive, to learning. What you don't have to pay, God, $9,000, right, for the kids and $11,000 for the adults per year. That's what a Montessori education costs. It's about $8,000 to $9,000 with the public education in Kentucky. It would help offset a private college if we had vouchers. It would also up private or public schools to do a better job. So, Maria Montessori, Reggio Emilia, done.